It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce, Michael, and Ivy. I know a story of high strangeness or two. Let's do this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
and we promoted him. I'm committing to it. It's ultra-terrestrial producer.
Riley Bray.
Hey,
Oh, yeah,
hi,
of
boys.
course. How's it going?
It's great
I can't
promotion.
I can't
Didn't
promote
come
you
with a
one
raise,
episode.
funny, but the title is impressive.
It's an astral raise, Riley.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You're
Now-
you're moving
now-
up on planes.
We're just going to have to
Yes.
figure out what we're going to call you on BCC The Other Side now that the ultra-terrestrial producers transferred over here.
Extra dimensional, maybe? We could,
love it.
I don't know.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
pretty
all right.
cool.
Yeah, we'll
I
take
like
some
that.
pitches. Well, we have a great guest with us this week. I want to bring him right in because he is literally going to be on his feet this entire episode. But before we do that, Riley, why don't we nominate a 5-star Club Scout of the Week? This is someone who's left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Well, Just Like Humans wrote, Cryptastic. I've been listening for some time and really enjoyed this show. These guys. It is my most anticipated show, and of all the wacky, said with the most respect, cryptid, ghost, monster, Bigfoot, Bernstein shows, this is really the best. These guys feel it, live it, and they have so much passion doing it. 5 stars.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks.
that's nice. It's
Just
true.
Like Humans.
We do love
Yeah.
it.
That's a
We-
lovely
we
review.
do love it. Thanks, everybody. Drop us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app, and it helps us get the show to more people. Okay, enough housekeeping. This week's guest is an actor and voiceover artist whose credits include Arrow, True Blood, Daybreak, Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures.
Yeah, it rolls on and on.
He also recently appeared in Bookie, the show that I'm a part of over on Max. This list of credits is too long, by the way. It's too long. Club Scouts of all timelines, too long to be on this show.
What is he doing here?
Yeah, please welcome to the show, Eugene Byrd. Eugene, welcome.
Thank you very much. Hey, Riley, I got to tell you something, man. I mean, I'm over here listening. I'm like, what's this, The Quiet Storm? Riley came in and was like,
You're not the first to mention that.
and it sounds like he's like, in a world where the man is happy. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yep.
All right. I mean, coming from you, that is quite a start. I'll take
Hey,
it.
man.
Can
It's
you
great.
believe, Eugene, that we kept that voice off the microphone for at least like 8 episodes of the
True.
show?
I was like, I'll
Why?
just turn the knobs. It's fine.
Well, I'll tell you why, so that we could get more eyes on us and ears on us.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out that
We
way.
can't open with Riley and expect
No.
anyone to listen to what we
Or
have
look
to
at
say.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
I hear that, but at the same time, going, hey, man, sometimes you got to use everything. You got to use everything,
true.
throw it at
We-
people. All of a sudden,
was-
Riley's going to become Urkel. It's just like,
Riley.
Yeah, he is.
Family Matters, and all of a sudden, you bring on Riley, and all of a sudden, the podcast explodes.
He is the Urkel of the show. They're making dolls of him now, pull-string dolls, where he says things like, "That's part." What do you wait? No.
You almost had it.
I almost had it. But
Did you see me
wait,
lean
I got
in
it.
to see if Michael could
I forgot the term. You pull the string and he says, "That's confirmation bias."
Oh, yeah. Actually, that would be, I mean,
You just say skeptical
usually
things.
is. Yeah.
Cool.
Eugene, welcome to the show. We're so happy
Thank
to have you here.
Appreciate
we
it.
have to kick this off by asking you the question that we ask all of our guests. What is your personal paranormal history? Do you have interest in the unexplained? Have you ever had an experience that you yourself cannot explain?
No. I've lived a very normal life.
Great show.
No,
Thanks for
no,
being
no,
here.
no, no, no. Yes, thank you. That was it. Thank you. I don't have to say it another hour. No, man. You know, actually, it's so weird. I think in the episode I'd listened to with Rachel Dratch, I was sitting there going, okay, and I heard something that made me say. So when I was a kid, I woke up. Now this is always weird because it started off this way. I remember waking up. My first memory is waking up in my bed and looking around going, where am I?
Whoa.
And just kind of looking around, things looked familiar, but I wasn't quite sure. And then my best friend at the time was familiar to me, but not quite.
No, wait, was your best friend in the room?
No, this is as the day went on. As the day went on, I was looking at him like he was a stranger, but I knew him, but things didn't make sense. It's a very, very vivid memory of like waking up, my hand doing this and just going, looking at my hands, then looking around my environment and going, where am I? And okay, that's my best friend. Okay, that's that person. It felt like, as I got older and started doing research into it, it felt like that thing of like, oh, I jumped in.
Right.
That insidious moment, I jumped in.
Yeah.
Something happened to the kid that was in here, and I jumped in.
Whoa.
Wow.
So that was always the thing that I always thought. And then I remember sleeping in my parents' bed one time, well, a few times, and I remember this figure hovering over me, and felt like she was trying to pull me out.
What?
Whoa.
And this was
wow.
later on as time went on. And then I've had that thing that everybody talks about that I had no idea about that paralysis.
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. I didn't know what that was for a long time. I just thought, man, this is weird. Like I was shaking, looking, and I would see a figure, black, dark, standing in the corner. And I was like, man, this is really odd. I haven't had it since, though, which is weird. And see, now that I say it, I'm probably going to have it, and I'm going to blame this podcast.
Sorry.
You're welcome.
I'm cured. I'm never going to have this again. But, yeah, man, that was my first start in terms of this.
We got to slow down a little bit because there is a lot to.
Yeah.
I feel like you sped
jump in
past
too.
all the scenery on this drive. Okay, and we need to go
For
back.
sure.
Well, because sometimes it creeps me out when I think about it. I'm like, man,
That's what this
that's
moment's
weird.
for, Eugene. I'm sorry. You got it. Now listen, if it gets too intense, of course you can tap out. But I want to go back to this moment when you woke up and
Pineapple.
you were like, okay, all right. Moving on. Let's play a game that we play with all of our guests. No, but this idea, I've never heard of this. I had the same. And I'm sure the guys did too. But my instinct went immediately to what you said, where it felt like maybe you had dropped into this.
Right.
That's
vessel.
what I picked up on. Dropped in.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit more detail if you can. How old were you? And like, how long did the sensation last? And when did you eventually get comfortable with, okay, this is my reality?
I'm going to say I was about 3 or 4.
Okay.
I feel
really
like
young.
it was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And, the sensation went away over the years, but it never
Whoa.
really left.
Right.
Really?
There's still moments that it feels like I took someone's life. Sometimes I know this is strange, and people are going to be like,
Everyone,
I know this is
Riley,
weird.
grab that clip and save it just in case we need it later to blackmail Eugene.
You know what? It's fine. It won't be the first time.
There's a bunch of them out there like that. Yeah.
Loads, man. You're just number 1,720. It was just really weird, man. There's still times where I'll be sitting someplace and I look around and reality doesn't feel it feels very, I'm trying to look for the word for this, but the reality always feels
Light-footed,
to me as
on shaky ground.
on shaky ground. And it also just felt like I got settled in. I got settled in. Like now that I'm older, I feel settled in. But for a long time, I just felt like, well, I just got to live this life. Everything, I felt anything was possible. I mean, a lot of kids and felt anything was possible. I used to be one of those kids that I wanted a toy out of a box.
Yeah.
Like a cereal box.
Yeah.
And I used to say, I remember walking one day to the supermarket, and all I kept doing was repeating what I wanted. And I out of the box. And I, in those boxes, they'll have like I wanted the disappearing coin box.
Yes.
And that was in the Honey Nut Cheerios. And I remember everybody says, oh, I got this one. I always wanted this one, but this one never came. And I just went, okay, I'm gonna get the box. I'm gonna get the box. I'm gonna get the box. And I kept repeating it.
Oh,
gave him the box.
man.
Went back home.
You're
kept repeating
manifesting.
it. I manifested.
Incantation. Yeah.
But what was interesting about it is that not only did I believe it, I knew
it.
I was getting that box as long as I made sure I saw it in my head. Because, I mean, you're a kid, but you think, oh, I have powers. I was
Right.
like, I have powers. But I also just felt like I actually had powers.
Yeah.
And so I went in that box, and that disappearing corn box was in there.
There's
Then
something to that.
There could be. And the weirdest one of all that I always remember is Transformers was on. There was an episode. that I
Okay,
wanted
now
to
we're
watch.
talking about language.
Hey man, this is weird. Now I'm a nerd.
I was more of an Apple Jacks boy, not a Honey Nut Cheerios boy. But now you have my
Transformers, you got
attention.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
but now that I got your attention, because like we said, it's Transformers. So Transformers was new back in my day. Back in the olden days, and so it was an episode I missed. I got home. I was upset because I got home and I missed that episode. They did do reruns the next day.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I went, that episode's coming on tomorrow. I'm going to watch that episode
No
tomorrow.
way.
The next day, they reran that episode for some odd reason. And I saw that episode. Now people sitting there going, man, you lying, baby. That had never happened. You just probably mixed up the days. But no,
I
because
love
my
the
friends tell me.
I love the meeting that happened in like the boardroom at the local affiliate station, where they're like, Rogers, why did you rerun yesterday's Transformers episode? I don't know.
I just had this
felt
feeling. I
compelled to."
had to do it.
I had to do it, man. It was like I was compelled.
I was, yeah.
Roger,
Man,
why do
you are
Rogers, why do you keep eating all the Honey Nut Cheerios out of the break room?
I saw some little black boy in my head going, eat this Cheerio so I can get that.
I want to touch on this idea that I think I love these words like dropped into this idea that reality is sort of like not concretized for you yet. In other words, it's still you can still manipulate it in some sense. And I've always felt that when people have complete belief in something, like you knew that toy was going to be in there, then the universe moves to make that happen. But if there's a sliver of doubt, like when Neo tries to jump off that roof, he has just the most sliver of doubt, and therefore his universe does not become concretized, and he can't make that jump because he didn't know his belief. Like you knew that toy was going to be in that box, and that Transformers was going to rerun, and that Bigfoot Collectors Club was going to be #1.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
See, I like that. I like what you did there. I like
Eugene, do you ever still today feel that sense of disassociation at all? Or do you feel like you're standing in terra firma?
Sometimes it'll happen. Sometimes it'll be days where it feels malleable. Like you said, Bryce, it feels malleable. Then there's other days, but those days are lessening because I feel like as we get older, we accept the reality we're in. We're kids, everything's magical, everything's possible. But as you get older and you deal with the stresses of life and responsibilities and all these other things, and all of a sudden, yes, I do believe malleability disappears. And those magical moments become more and more fleeting. That's why I always love that idea that keep your child inner. Always have that inner child. Always believe in things. Always have a healthy imagination. I had a very healthy imagination when I was a child.
Yeah.
So, which helped me as an actor as well, obviously, as you know. And so when you have that kind of thought process, the reality is bendable. It is like there is no spoon.
Right.
Yeah.
But as an adult, it becomes a spoon.
I also think too, sometimes just being young and especially being out in here, we all joined the circus. We all went out to sea for our lives. And I feel like sometimes when you're young and you don't know better, it's easier to go into things with blind confidence, and you might actually be able to manifest or achieve things a little bit better because that doubt hasn't yet set in. When I look back at myself coming out to LA, just like the belief I had in myself versus, I know this sounds sad, but like the belief I have now after 20 years of reality.
Nothing weird about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like after 20 years of reality, just kicking your ass and rejections, like there is something so important. And I wonder what happens to that inner child and that idea of why not me? Someone has to do it. It could be me. To now, like, it's probably not going to be me.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I totally pick up on what you guys are saying. And I think that's, you know, for me, that's why if I'm in Target, I'm hitting that toy section. I just want to keep that imagination fluid and running, and like, you know, I'm on location and I bought this like little Nerf gel gun and I'm blowing bubbles out the window and trying to shoot them out the window. People think I'm crazy. They're like, Bryce, you're like a fucking kid. And I'm like, I know, because to your point, I want to keep my universe malleable.
Yes. I think it's important. I think it's important that we, you know, keep teaching our kids, you know, if anybody has kids, to appreciate being children. Because once that time is gone and you allow reality, you allow other people, you allow things to just get more and more like just not stagnant, stiff. I feel like it becomes stiff. I feel like life becomes stiff.
Yeah.
But then it's a playground of so much joy, and that's why I also love doing voiceovers for kid shows.
Of course,
because of that. Because my voice allows me to remain in some sort of like
anything you want.
Space, yes, in space. You know, as actors, we get to play in space, but when you do like voiceovers and kid shows, you do all these different voices, and you're going and you're going there. You know, and it's always fun.
You get to do things that on camera people will be like, no, dial it back. Way back.
Right. Dial it way back, man. Who do you think you are? I was like, all right, SNL? I'm like, maybe. I mean,
maybe. Why not?
All right, we're going to take yeah. Riley, go ahead.
I've jumped on your break, but I'll
no.
Eugene, I'm curious to go back to that moment when you kind of like dropped into your body or came into being. And I'm wondering, like, I know we're going back to a 3-year-old memory, so it's hard to say exactly, but did you feel like you had a sense of self that was separate from the life you were dropping into? Like, did you feel like you came from somewhere?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I started reading about it a lot because I started, as I got older, I was like, I want to figure it out. I remember someone, this lady back in the 90s, and she was telling me, I think you're from Sirius B, which I was like, huh?
Oh,
damn,
lady.
Oh my God!
There's souls that drop in there from
Dog Star.
from a totally different,
that's oh my God,
totally different universe. And I also have a very well, you go do the break. I'll tell you exactly.
Yeah, let's.
There's something that I add in here that I usually.
There's
there's
some crazy history about Sirius B too. That's like not just any old star system. That's like That's like one of the craziest.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out if Eugene Byrd is from outer space. Okay, we're back with Eugene Byrd. Eugene, so you might be from a white dwarf star known as Sirius B. Go on.
Oh my goodness.
Supposedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Says 90s lady.
Yeah, it says 90s lady, which is like,
90s new age lady.
Which is actually pretty spot on for 90s.
Yeah, exactly. That tracks.
Were you ever called an indigo child? Because you might be an indigo child.
No.
Oh, that's like.
I remember that one.
Remember that? That was also a 90s new wave lady thing that like.
Wasn't Indigo Girls?
Millennials were. Yeah.
Separate.
Okay. There were certain millennials that were like star children or indigo children that were going to like save humanity. So let's step up, Gen Z.
I wish I was the last starfighter. That'd have been nice.
I just want to jump in here on like, there's just a few like planets and stars that a lot of this information gets like sort of attributed to. Sirius B is one of them, the Sirius satellites, the Sirius star system. And one of the incredible things about that star system, that binary star system, is there's a tribe in Africa called the Dogon tribe. And they knew that it was a a sister star system.
Binary star system,
A binary star system centuries before our astronomers and astrologists were able to confirm that. And when they were asked how they knew the impossible, that this was actually a binary star system, which most stars are actually, we now know, they said the star people told us that. And that's how we know. And that's how we know. So, it's like
I can neither
Orion's
confirm
belt,
or deny.
Love it.
the Pleiades, Sirius, those are all like these hot button star systems where we get a lot of these quote unquote alien contact from.
Right.
It's wild.
It's once you start going into it, it gets really, it gets really interesting. That's why it was always interesting to me as I was growing up. I mean, I also wanted to be, I was into astronomy. It was like weird things when I was a kid. But most kids want to be astronauts and they want to do space. But I really love the idea of space. I love Star Trek because
I think you're picking up on some signals and stuff, man. That's
it was
awesome.
like back then. It was like, hey man, stay close.
Yeah.
The longer you're here, the more you lose touch with those things. And
Yes.
Yeah. What did I leave off on a cliffhanger? I was going to tell you. See, this is what happens to get older too, because you're like,
Well,
I
we
forget.
just talked about 90s New Wave Lady and Sirius B.
Indigo Child.
And you were alluding to like research something you had discovered going down this path from there.
It's funny. As I go back in this is not that story, but it's that other thing about not only have a sense of self. I remember there were times where I felt really quote unquote vibey, because I can't think of another word for it right now. But
That's perfect.
I remember I was sitting around with a couple of from friends here in LA. It was one of the times I was visiting, not living here yet. I was probably 17, and they were all drunk or something, high, whatever it was at the time. And I remember they all kept looking at me strangely. And I thought, oh, this is a joke. They're playing with me. And they all went, do y'all see that? And I was like, what are y'all talking about? And then we were all talking about paranormal stuff at the time.
Yeah.
And they went, yo, man, I see his aura.
Whoa.
And they told me it was white.
Whoa.
And I was like, what do you mean? It was like, it's pure white.
They
and
saw
remember, it was
your
no,
aura.
They saw my aura, which
Wow.
I was like, come on. This is some old LA actor nonsense y'all talking. They were like, no, man, I'm dead serious, man. To a person, they kept saying, no, it looks white. And another person like, no, it has a little bit of orange around it. And another person has a little purple. And I was like, no, it's all white. And I just went, look, I can't see it. I think you're all joking. But what was weird about it that night is I felt higher. Not high, but like kind of just weirdly, because I was giving advice that night. And that's always been who I've been, is like friends will talk to me about anything and I'll give them advice. And it's usually on track of what's going on with them, even if I don't know them.
Wow. Hell yes.
So I've always been able to like talk to someone and they'll just spill things to me. And I know
It does sound, Eugene, like you could be an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I think you're a space wizard, man.
I don't know if I'm a space wizard, but which is hilarious.
That's cool. Listen,
it
take it
seems
if
like
you're
it.
offered it.
Space wizard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it, but it is one of those moments where I was like, there were different times in my life where I was like, that's weird. That doesn't track.
I'm just picturing Eugene, space
so
wizard,
wild.
plucking a little boy's consciousness out of his body.
Like, I'm gonna borrow that.
Yeah, just sending him in a little like starry jar for a little while on another plane, and then just sliding in.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was.
God.
You just brought me back. I don't know why, but you brought me back. So I don't know about anybody else here. Everybody has fears, but I have a very deep fear
Terrified
that
of
when we have to talk about that, Mike. Anyway, so I have this one fear, and my fear is not of death. It's of eternity.
Ooh.
Oh God, it should be.
Whoa.
It's of
Hell
eternity.
yes.
But let me ask you, before I tell you, Bryce, why? Why do you say that?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, if you, I just remember listening to sort of Alan Watts sort of unpack this idea of Christian heaven and hell, and the idea that the way they painted it and the way they described it in their literature, it sounded like hell. Like, you know, everybody playing harps and sitting and being on their best behavior for eternity? No fucking thank you. What could be worse? When really he was like, it sounds like hell at least had some fun and interesting people. And if we're going to do anything for eternity, maybe I'll go there. You know, it's a thought experiment, and I think if people really took the time to go into it, you wouldn't want anything to go on forever. That's why annihilation is beautiful. You should not fear death. You should fear going on forever.
Who is this madman ranting about annihilation and blowing bubbles out of his hotel window?
As long as you're not talking about Annihilation the movie, which I could not stand, but anyway.
You know, but I just wanted to Eugene's point, it's like, you know, death should come as a great softener. You know, I mean, it's like taking off an uncomfortable shoe. It's really, I think, like, you know, if you think about the idea of like going on forever and ever and ever, it's almost like, even if you try and get into like the mind of the creator having that same problem, it's daunting, right? Yeah. That's why nothing lasts forever. Everything has to come to a close, even eternity.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, so because that's what made me think, oh man, maybe I'm not from this body, is that I was escaping eternity.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm tired of this. And I jumped in. I dropped into this body. I was like,
Wizard.
I thought maybe this child
himself from eternity.
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, and I feel like maybe I'm not. I mean, it would be silly. It's like, oh, we're the only life in the entire universe, this vast universe, for us to have that kind of like egotistical thought process.
Right.
I'm not egotistical thing. Oh, I only have the power to jump in. No, I felt like we all do. Right. I jumped away because eternity, the thought of it. So whenever I think about it, it literally gives me chills, and I have to stop talking about it. So even when I'm talking about it right now, I have to disassociate myself from what I'm talking about so I can have this conversation.
I want to pull you back in just a little bit, Space Wizard. So do you think that is the thing that scares you about eternity the idea of it's just ongoing, never ending? Is it monotonous, or is it you know, or is it just the
how do I bring this ride to a close?
Yeah.
It's just, I just feel the idea of it doesn't end. And I don't know if we have a way to intelligently speak about what that must feel like.
Yeah.
To literally go on. Go on with nothing. I mean, it's not ending at all.
Yeah.
At all. I don't care if it's beautiful. I don't care if it's blissful.
I've got to chime in after you're done. I've never sort of told anyone this. You know, one time when I was like really high on mushrooms with my best friend, and sort of he took on the persona of the creator. Now take that whatever you will, right? And so to me, in my framework, that was God, or whatever word you want to use, right? And so he sort of took on this persona, and he looked troubled.
Right.
And I remember sort of like feeling like, oh my God, if you're the creator, what could possibly trouble you? And you know, the response was like, time, eternity. I'm getting tired of doing this. I've been doing it for so long. I just want it to end. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, and it was terrifying, Eugene, the idea that the creator was getting a little tired of the whole rigmarole. And man, that was a fucking mind buster for me too.
It's crazy. I mean, it's what Supernatural was, the show near the end, is that God left because he was What's
done.
He gonna do? He's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me offer a different perspective here. This might bring you both a little comfort.
Great.
I think what people describe, or what we hear when we say everything lasts forever, there's eternity outside of this life, is that time is a construct here that sort of encapsulates the third dimension. And once you're outside of the third dimension, let's say in the fifth dimension, you know, if let's say time is the fourth dimension that shrouds the third dimension, right? That really, when we're describing eternity, we're saying we step out of this realm and into a realm where linear time no longer exists. And so it's a totally different construct that we can't fully wrap our brains around, that is unending. But
and we fear what we don't understand.
The best term we have for it is eternity, but we think of eternity in a linear concept, which is a ticking clock that never ends, right? When in reality, it's just going to be a completely different type of existence, right?
I agree with that. I agree with that. I do agree with that.
So maybe that brings you some comfort. You know, it's sort of like...
it's like a good warm blanket, but at some point that blanket has to come off. That blanket has to come off because I got stuff to do. I can't wrap myself in it for too long.
This conversation is a warm blanket for me, but we also have to take it off. We got to play a game that we play with all of our guests, Eugene. Okay. I'm going to be real interested to hear where your mind goes with this. I'm going to go down a list of phenomena, rapid fire style, and you have to choose in this moment. If you're open to it, you're going to say, believe it. Okay. If you're not open to it, you're going to say bullshit. Okay. There's no in between, but if something really you really want to talk about one of these things on the list, at the end of the list, we can circle back and unpack it for you. Okay?
All right.
This is a game that we call bullshit
or believe it.
All right, Eugene Byrd, on your mark, get set, ghosts.
Believe it.
Bigfoot.
Believe it.
UFOs.
Definitely believe it.
Crystals.
90s, but yeah, cool.
Ouija boards.
Ooh. Let's go bullshit this one.
Tarot cards.
Ooh. Yeah, believe it.
Alien abductions.
Oh, damn it. I think they're nicer than that bullshit.
Shapeshifters.
Bullshit.
Shadow people.
Believe it.
Gnomes.
As a little person, I'm not a little person, but as a short person, I'll say bullshit.
Astral projection.
Believe it.
Psychic dreams.
Believe it.
Sheep squatch.
Huh?
It's like a Bigfoot, but it has like a ram's head.
Oh, what's that thing? Nah, bullshit. Which is weird because it's bullshit. Yeah.
Bat squatch, a giant bat with some muscles.
Big buff bat.
Big buff bat.
By the way, there probably is a buff bat out there, so I'm saying I believe it. There probably is, because it's buff dogs.
I hope.
So I'm like,
That's true.
Buff kangaroos.
Buff kangaroos.
Those videos are terrifying.
All the quatches, believe it.
The lizard man. Great. How about this guy? The lizard man of Skateboard Swamp. A humanoid lizard that would terrify people driving their cars in South Carolina.
You know, that's probably somebody with like a scale condition, and they just think that he's a lizard man. So I'd say I believe it. I just don't believe him.
Speaking to the dead.
That's a hard one, but yeah, believe it.
Demons.
Woo! In this reality's concept, believe it.
Wendigos.
Ooh. No. Bullshit.
Werewolves.
It's so funny because it's basically the same in a different way. Bullshit.
Parallel universes.
Believe it.
Past lives.
Believe it.
Doppelgangers.
Ooh. Yes. Believe it.
Destiny.
Ooh. Bullshit.
Life after death.
Not unfortunately, that's because that's why I believe that eternity thing. Believe it.
Great job. Wow. The shadow people thing made me realize that we didn't get quite a great description, if you wouldn't mind going there, of the shadow entity that you saw or that was trying to pull you out. It
looked like a woman, and she was hovering over me, and she would hover over me a few nights. Oof. And it just felt like there was a weight on my chest, and it felt like somebody just it was doing this, and I would just
succubus.
Yeah, a succubus. Yeah. But I was also feeling like she was, like I tried to say in the beginning, pulling me out.
Yeah.
Like she was trying to pull me out of my body. And which made me go, she's trying to pull me out of this body. Because I'm not supposed to be here.
Yep.
I'm supposed to go back because, they need space wizards as many times.
Hey,
Right.
Let me ask you, Mike, and I guess, and this is for everybody. Eugene, we get so much shadow people stuff, and it always happens in that right around that sort of a liminal time around 3 a.m. So there's definitely a connecting thing here of when people are entering that dream space. And I'm starting to wonder if these like shadow entities are perhaps chaperones or something to lead people into this dream space. Because I don't know. There does seem to be like these shadow people always enter this time when people are either lucid or getting into that dream, that REM sleep. And there's always shadow people accompanying it. Michael, do you have any sort of guesswork as to what's going on there?
I mean, there's so many conflicting things. I think like, if you're taking the approach of like, you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're in between half awake, in between sleep and awake, your brain is trying to make images of things in the room, and like forming shadows into people seems to be like something the brain might try to do. The other thing, I've always kind of thought the idea that they were sort of, if we're going with the paranormal thing, that they are sort of they are shadows of entities that are overlapping with our dimension in another dimension, maybe.
That's good.
Now,
that's
that
good.
one I thought about.
I like that.
Adela Levine, our friend of the show, a medium and intuitive, she says that the shadow entities are sort of like, I'm probably misquoting her here, but that they're actually like more helpers. They're not scary. That they
chaperone.
Are sort of,
that's what I meant by that.
That's what you were saying. But then I go, are they all chaperones?
No, they can't be.
Yeah,
some
because
are terrifying.
It's that exactly. It's that thing of like,
I want to help you. Come with me.
Right.
That's why I don't think like the alien greys are all that cool, because they're too scary. They're too scary, and they
Yeah, I don't think they're out there butt probing people. Which I always thought was interesting. I'm like, why is it always a butt probing? But like, couldn't they just do some like, hey man, I'm just gonna touch you, and like there was this movie, No One Will Save You.
That's a great. Bryce still hasn't seen it. We got to do
you
it
have
for
to see
movie club.
You really? I don't know why you haven't seen that, Bryce. You need. To
I just saw X-Files for the first time last night. So.
He's a real enigma.
Yeah,
he just keeps pulling these things.
Bryce is actually moving backwards in time.
I'm sitting there going, I'm like, wait a minute, man. You doing this podcast? You haven't seen X-Files?
I know.
Yeah.
Come on, Bryce.
I mean,
I know,
to me, what you're describing like takes me back to like mythological constructs. Like you crossed the river Styx, and these are these sort of like entities that hang out in that space, and it's you came from the this undying eternal world, and you dropped into this consciousness. And it also it reminds me a lot of like these Buddhist concepts of like samsara and sort of like the karmic wheel, where it's like this whole idea of you were this consciousness that dropped into this body and this being
vessel
to have an experience and like live a life, and then I maybe return to this transcendent space outside of time, but it seems like that you had that sense of like you came from this space outside of time, and there were these sort of beings that were maybe trying to pull you back in, or that's just you were leaving that, or that it's the threshold between the
connected
two.
to it maybe a little bit.
You
more
caught
than
wind
others.
of that. You sensed that.
Right. Well, let me ask all three of you this question. Like, do you three or anybody who believes in past lives?
I mean,
well,
I'm certainly open to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want to throw this out. I want to throw this
Yeah.
out at you. If we believe in past lives, I always thought, if I'm viewing this one, if this is the particular one I happen to be viewing, this is it. I'm done with this plane of existence.
Got it.
There will not be a return.
Okay.
I don't know why I've always thought that way. I know we deal with parallel universes, parallel worlds, and we don't deal in time being linear. That
Right.
I could be viewing all my lives at the same time.
Yes.
I agree, and you know, I think if you ran a survey amongst most Buddhists, they would not subscribe to this idea of literal reincarnation. In other words, I think what you're saying is right, Eugene. If you imagine it like consciousness is an ocean, and we borrow from it like a thimble, and then it goes back, you know, and then, you know, to come back in this plane again, we borrow from it again. And yes, you know, we're not the it's not, you know.
We don't hold on. I just want to, just because we could follow you with your gestures, but people listening at home, we don't borrow from a thimble. The thimble is dipped into a larger ocean, and
That's
the thimble
what I'm
is
saying.
the vessel
You're
that
right.
we are, and then we pour it back into the ocean, basically, is what you're saying.
That's right. I don't think there's this idea that, you know, that Eugene, you were this one specific person in another life. Maybe partially some of your energy might have partaken in some of that that formation. But I don't buy this idea that I was, you know, because it's so funny. Everybody's like, well, actually, I was Cleopatra in my former life, which is pretty
we all
amazing,
were
you know. And we
Cleopatra.
all were
All right.
Cleopatra, and
We
it's
all were
like, you know, I don't think it's literal. Like I was this person exactly. I think, of course, we
Maybe
recognize
we all
that.
were Cleopatra. It's
That's what
actually
I'm
what you're
saying.
saying.
Actually,
That's
yeah,
right.
in
We
infinite
recognize that we are
timelines, yeah.
borrowing all this energy anyway, and it's just returned.
Yeah.
Love it.
I mean, if we go with that whole concept that, you know, whether you're religious or spiritual, you know, you go with that spiritual concept of like God wanted to see themselves.
Experience.
So they
Gnosis.
broke themselves up
Yeah.
into us.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
love
could
that.
experience, could view. And so we're all a piece. And so when we go back, we all go back to the same body.
It's a
Right.
consciousness that's like playing every character in a massive, you know, online
Yes.
game. You know,
Right.
all of it from the CPUs to, you know, all the player characters.
All
But
the
then where
world's
it
a
gets weird,
stage.
and why I was asking was that you did have a sense of self before
Mhm.
you dropped it. And that's what I was like getting at with that question, is that you came here with something formed in this memory of, you know, sort of like waking up, and then that's that big question of like, well, what is that? Who is that, and where did they come from?
And, you know, and I wish we, I wish there was something that when you're a child and you tell adults never believe you
Yeah.
because they're going, oh, they're playing,
right?
or whatever. They see something different. But some way we can go, yes, child, tell me the experience. And you write it down.
Mhm.
And the adult writes it down for the child, like some kind of, and maybe some culture does, maybe some cultures do that. I don't know. I'm not us personally.
Let's get it started.
If I ever have
Ask
kids,
your kids where they
I'm
came from.
100% going to do that kind of stuff. Record the weirdest things that they say or the
Right.
weirdest ways they describe things, just so I have a record of it. I'll create the first paranormal child. All right, we got
on record. On
yeah,
record.
on record. All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, it's time for this week's story of high strangeness.
Woo!
Okay, it's time for high strangeness, Eugene. You sit back, you relax. Let's nurture that inner child with a story. All of you back home. Eugene, also, you may not be able to see. I forgot to tell you, I sent you some visual aids in an email for this.
I think
but
you did, and I
might
was
wanna
like,
take a
what's
pic.
happening?
Well, you'll find out. For the rest of you, if you want to follow along, check out our Instagram at Bigfoot Collectors Club, and you can see some of the photos that we're going to reference here. But if not, use your mind's eye, okay, everybody? Because trust me, I'm going to describe some fun stuff. Here we go. This week's installment is considered one of the most popular close encounter stories that comes out of Japan. And it is reminiscent of some of the weirder encounter stories that we get here in the Western world, cases like the Pascagoula alien abduction or the Hopkinsville goblin story. Also, we might want to add these creatures to the short list for Monster Showdown 5 coming up this October. This is the case of the Kofu Fanged Humanoids.
Fuck, cool name.
That's a dope name.
Almost 50 years ago, on February 23rd, 1975, in Kofu City, Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan, two second-grade students, both boys and cousins, Katsuhiro Yamahata and Masato Kawano, were out in their neighborhood roller skating around after school. After a while, the boys decided to pack it in and head home to their mothers to watch some evening television. So they took off their skates and began making their way, just as the skies had turned dark. Not too far into their journey home, the boys looked up to see two bright orange lights in the eastern sky. They watched, perplexed, as the lights danced around one another before splitting apart in separate directions. The larger light zipped off towards Mount Otago. The second, smaller light descended towards Kofu City and, to Yamahata and Kawano's amazement, began to move towards their direction.
Uh-oh. That's not good.
As it got closer, the boys watched as a black tube emerged from what seemed to be the underbelly of some type of craft. This tube, resembling a telescopic lens, aimed itself at the children, emitting a whirring and clicking sound. Terrified that the object might fire some type of heat ray or laser beam, the boys took off and hid in the nearby graveyard of a temple. There, they waited with bated breath until the night nestled in and the area grew quiet. With no sign of the bright orange light, the boys poked their heads out from their hiding place and dashed towards their home. However, down the road was a vineyard, and as they passed by, through the grapevines, the boys could see a bright reddish light just over the crest of a hill. Towards the center of the vineyard, it looked like there was a fire. So, filled with curiosity and excitement, Yamahata and Kawano diverted from their path to investigate. When they reached
That's exactly what it wants you to do,
Yeah.
Kawano. Don't go!
When they reached the area where the red light had been discovered, they discovered a landed silver craft parked in the vineyard. A classic silver saucer about the size of a large car, maybe 12 to 15 feet across and 6 feet tall at the center dome. It had 3 rounded landing gear and strange symbols written across the side. And a ladder, which is very bizarre to me, a ladder had descended from the craft and was parked. Yeah, because you have this future. Sometimes in these stories, Eugene, you get these like futuristic looking craft that have very manual landing gear or
fixing it with a wrench.
And why would they have because it feels like that's very earthly to have a ladder.
Yes, a ladder. Yes.
It's a very astute point.
A hatch opened, bathing the two boys in silver light, and from within the craft, a figure emerged. Now, they described it as being 4 feet tall, brown-skinned with no face and lots of wrinkles, head to toe, wrinkle, 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 wrinkle.
So Enemy Mine.
Yes, very similar.
So good.
Yeah, very good. Yes, we talked about that movie over on the other side a couple of years ago.
Love that movie.
The boys likened it to a Naparabo, which is a type of faceless Japanese spirit. Where a mouth might be located, emerged 3 long metallic-looking fangs. It had pointy, bat-like ears protruding from the side of its pruned head, so think the Hopkinsville Goblins.
Okay.
And it was dressed in a silver jumpsuit. Its hands were gloveless, exposing 4 brown wrinkled fingers, but it wore silver boots, which forked at the toes and branched apart like bird feet. Around its waist was a belt, and the suit seemed to zip along the creature's spine. So they got a pretty good detailed look at this thing.
So this is not something you can get at Big 5.
Yeah, especially in 1975.
But you can't cosplay it.
Yeah. Slung over its shoulder was an instrument that looked like a space-age version of a hunting rifle. They could see a second figure sitting in the dome of the craft in what appeared to be the cockpit, working at a console. Now, during this, the first creature managed to circle around the boys and place a hand on Yamahata's shoulder. And when the boy turned to gaze into the creature's wrinkled brown face, the being uttered a vocal sound that sounded like koi koi, koi 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 koi. And the children likened it to the sound of a tape recorder rewinding at very high speeds.
Cool.
So Yamahata doesn't know how to react to this, so he just dropped to the ground and played dead.
Smart.
As Kawano started screaming. And Kawano rushed to his friend, dragged him to his feet, and carried him out of the vineyard, away from these two beings.
He just went turtle.
Yeah, he did.
Nope,
Well, and
nope.
some ufologists hear these stories and are like, oh, we do have there are these stories of people who feel like they go into a paralyzed state or a state of paralysis when they encounter extraterrestrial beings. So maybe something like that happened. But
that's that
so
reptilian system, central nervous system, fight or flight, dude.
Fight or flight.
You find out real quick. Yeah.
So the boys ran home to Kawano's house and excitedly shouted to their mothers, who were both there, about what had just happened. After trying to calm the boys down, their moms finally decided to follow them back to the vineyard where the boys had insisted that they'd just encountered 2 aliens in a flying saucer. Now, to their shock, Yamamoto and Kawano's mothers arrived in tow just in time to see a large orange object ablaze in the vineyard. Now, so seems to be
they saw
sidebar
it too.
that when the craft is in flight or about to take off, it emits this bright reddish orange light. But when it's parked and it's stationary, it's silver. So they come back, see this bright orange light in the vineyard, and Yamamoto's mother later told investigators it was a brilliant orange color, like watching fireworks or something. It was spinning while growing brightly and blinking. Alarmed, the moms went home with the boys to get their dads, brought their fathers back, and soon both families with both sets of parents were back at the vineyard watching in awe as this bright orange light began to shrink and condense into an orb, disappearing before their eyes and then shooting up into the night sky and vanishing for good.
Wow. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Because it makes.
I love all those witnesses too.
Yeah. Oh, I dig that. But I also think that's. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. That might not be.
No. Go ahead,
no,
please.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, that's that thought of like, if we were able to do, to really finally do space travel, I feel like you have to turn into energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, matter has to become energy. You just have to almost transpose that into energy so you can do it. So you can break the laws of our version of physics.
Yes.
Right.
What we know to be
Hell
physics.
yes.
So that night
yes.
they go back home. This is one of my favorite parts of the story. On the way home, they can see the parents can now look at the boys and go, they're losing their goddamn minds. They spent the night. They said they spent all night like having nightmares and were terrified and had a hard time sleeping.
Yeah.
And one, I think it was I can't remember if it was Kawano or Yamamoto's mother, but she said, it's nothing to be afraid of. Probably what you saw was probably just a hitodama, which in Japanese folklore is a ball of fire that is the soul of a dead person who's been separated from their bodies. So it's like, don't worry, you probably just saw ghosts.
That's great.
Just a lost fire soul.
Yeah, ghosts don't have landing tripods and and ladders.
But
So-
doesn't it amazes me what people are willing to believe. They say, no, that sounds crazy. But this.
Yeah.
Right.
So at school the next day, the boys were surprised to learn that one of their classmates, Ichiro Menegishi, also claimed that they had seen a bright light while riding in the car home with his parents that night.
Wow.
As the children began to swap stories, rumor of this UFO landing was floating down the hallways of the school. And after a couple of days, the principal decided to, instead of the principal shutting it down, he calls Yamanashi Nichi Shimbun, the local paper, and calls the press in to interview the children. This is sort of reminiscent of the area school
like
phenomenon.
That. Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's good.
And so reporters came in and interviewed the two boys and their parents about the story, which is where we get these quotes. Investigators also went out to the vineyard to collect any physical evidence that could have been left behind, and there were indeed signs that something had been there. So first they found a concrete pillar that had been tipped over inexplicably, and there were other concrete structures in the vineyard that had been damaged, and they weren't sure why this had happened. And there was a metallic netting that was over the vineyard that looked like something had sat on it or landed on it. They also discovered 3 deep impressions in the ground that matched the boys' descriptions of the rounded landing gear.
Wow.
And one of the local high school professors came out and tested the samples of the soil in the immediate area and found that there was a higher than normal amount of radiation. And more tests were done on the soil that corroborated those initial results. So as the story spread, journalists and police started asking around, and more eyewitnesses started to come forward. One person said that they saw an orange flickering light in the night sky after his dog had alerted him to the unusual celestial activity. A local temple high priest also witnessed a strange light changing shapes and sizes and streaking across the night sky that night. And one of the more curious witnesses came forth years later, 7 years later in 1983. At the behest of her friends and family who wanted her to finally go public with this, because by that point, this had kind of become a sort of like the Roswell story.
A big case.
Of Japan. The witness was an insurance salesman named Midori, who came forward with her story on a news program called Late Night. Midori was driving to collect a payment on the 23rd when she came across two beings standing in the middle of the road. Thinking that they were at first middle school boys, she honked her horn at them, but they didn't move. And after honking politely a few more times, she was like, well, I need to go get this money. That's what she told the interview. She's like, I gotta go get this money. So she slowly drove past the two figures, and as she drove past them, one of them put its hand on her window, and she claimed that she saw this completely black hand with wrinkles, deep-set wrinkles stretching across its palm. And she claimed that the wrists were like a turtleneck. You know how like a turtle sticks its head out of the shell? And was also completely wrinkled.
Same creature.
And she glanced up at the face. Now, this is where we get a little bit of difference, but she said the face was dark, wrinkled, but she could see two large eyes. She said they had a straight line at the base, and then they opened in high arches, almost like if you picture like Pluto, like a
I was about to say cartoonish
eyes. Yeah, very cartoonish eyes. And she was so surprised by this, but she only took in the face and palm for about 6 seconds as she was driving past, and then she just kept going. So it's possible the thing could have had ears, but in the darkness she couldn't see them. We don't know. But in the 50 years since the Kofu UFO incident, the Fanged Humanoid story became one of the most popular UFO tales in Japanese folklore. The boys are now grown, but have never wavered from that the account took place on February 23rd, 1975, and even undergoing regression hypnosis in the early 2000s in order to shed more light on the encounter. No additional details seem to really emerge, save for some chicken scratch recreations of the symbols on the side of the ship, which no one was able to decipher. The stories were consistent and remain consistent to this day. And Yamahata and Kawano have remained true to their story. Eugene, that is the story of the Kofu Fanged Humanoids.
Wow.
I love this stuff. This is like a John Keel. There's a old paranormal investigator from the 60s and 70s. This is like some good high strangeness that has echoes of stuff that we've talked about on the show, but it's happening in Japan.
Well, let me ask you this: you've been to Comic-Con, right?
Oh yeah.
There was one time, I'm gonna say it real fast. A friend of mine, my friend Sujata, and I were coming back from Comic-Con. We decided to go up and come right back. And we're driving, and we both look up for some reason while we're driving, and we see this green ball, and it's just kind of weirdly hovering. And we're like, what is that? And then all of a sudden, it shot, but it didn't shoot in a straight line. And it did something weird, and I went, oh my God. And she was like, you saw that? I was like, yeah, I saw it. What was that? To this day, no one knows what we saw, but it did not move in a straight line. It moved in a really kind of weird zigzag, and then and fast. Like it was kind of like, it's probably say, it was gas. You saw gas. But it's one of those things where, we would be silly to think that they don't visit.
Yeah. If they can, they are. For sure.
They are.
We would. So what do you guys think about this? There's a couple like skeptical theories that they put forth. I want to hear your opinions.
I'm not interested in those. I'll tell you what. This reminds me of the Socorro saucer, man.
Totally.
Lonnie Zamora out of Socorro, New Mexico in the 50s. Same type of craft, 3 landing pegs, two creatures coming out, suited up. And then when it takes off, they sort of describe the same thing. It takes on an orange luminescent thing. Very interesting. That craft also had a symbol on it. So I love sort of this cross-culture pollination. You know what else is interesting, too? Hold on.
Also, this has a lot of echoes of the Ariel School phenomenon. The aliens in that story were also brown-skinned with lots of wrinkles and big eyes, but they didn't have the pointy ears. But the saucer was very similar.
Hey, I bought my son a stuffy the other day because I thought it might have been cool, but it was a Hopkinsville Goblin. But look what it has, Mike.
Oh,
Little fangs.
Yeah.
Little
The
fangs,
fingers,
right?
That thing's cool.
Great.
Yeah, right. Strange little synchronicity. No, I love this story, and what I love is that it comes from Japan, because we really need more of these stories of high strangeness from other countries than our own. So, but I love this, and we can start to make some comparisons with these little piloted occupants. Because I love a good UFO and a good landing, but I really love an occupant coming out
Me
of
too.
there. You know?
Well, I mean,
favorite.
it's to serve man.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
three of that, the saucer. But it's so funny because I'm going back to the episode you had with Rachel Dratch, brain. And then we were sitting there talking about it, and I was listening to you guys. I was like, you know what? It's true. I think for every culture, maybe they shift for you.
Time and place, yeah.
Visually. You know, because they could all be the same aliens.
Well, so this is interesting, Eugene. So one of the theories behind, skeptical theories behind this is that the aliens, as described, resembled, and I can find it in video, but I couldn't find a screen. I'll try to get a screen grab and put it up on the Instagram. But they look similar to two creatures that had appeared on Ultraman, the Japanese show about the dude who fights, giant space monsters.
Yeah.
Not
Influenced by that,
exact,
maybe.
but very similar. So people are like, "Oh, these kids were just describing something that they had seen on TV." But then again, if we go with this theory of that they appear in a shape or form that a child or the user might understand,
Or a culture or society.
Right.
they
culture,
might
society.
be using the images that these kids had, how they thought of aliens looking as a way to appear, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of goes with that idea that it depends on the culture and the user themselves. I will say that I pulled this quote from one of the websites. The authorities of the Civil Aviation Bureau Transportation Ministry claim that the UFO is nothing but the taillights of a YS-2 propeller aircraft.
Hogwash.
According to them, the propeller plane often flew at an altitude of 1,000 meters and
outta
was
here.
visible through the naked eye. Come on, guys. This is
Yeah.
not a
Hey,
plane's
I have a,
tail.
I have
it's
one.
not.
I have a question though, and this is a serious question. How do you honk politely?
Beep, beep.
Let's go. I go, bah.
Yeah.
But if I go, bah, if you hang on it,
Yeah.
it's different.
Oh,
But
It's
see,
the Hollywood.
beep, beep,
It's the Hollywood
beep, or beep.
honk. You know, someone's texting at a red light. I go beep beep beep.
yeah, beep, beep, beep. Or,
Yeah, come on, let's go.
And then a little wave followed by hey guys,
Yeah.
just
Hi.
let me get by.
I don't wave. I just like, yeah, okay, you better moved. Being nice though.
Yeah.
I mean, with this one though, I got like you have multiple witnesses, right? You have the kids
Yeah.
that had the full encounter, then you have the moms and the dads.
Yes.
You have this second witness coming forward later that saw basically what we're saying is the same creature. Maybe it has flappy eyelids or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And
Or
then
is appearing to her in a slightly
Shifting.
different way. You
Right.
know, I don't know.
But
We don't
according to Scully from X-Files, finished watching it, Bryce, mass hypnosis? Science always
Right.
try to explain
Yes.
it in a way
Right.
that
a mass
kinda-
delusion event.
yeah, mass
know.
delusion.
Yeah.
But there was physical evidence too at the landing site, which was pinpointed by the witnesses. So that, they're like, okay, we can see there were feet here. This was damaged. So it hits a lot of notes. This one, it's a very good one.
It's
very
it's
good
got all the working parts to keep it a captivating story for generations. Can't write it off completely. Well, Eugene, thank you so much for joining us this episode,
Hey,
man. What a
that was
delight.
fun, man. I hope I
Yeah,
didn't sound
good.
crazy, but of course,
Oh
that's
my
the whole
God,
point.
no! In a
you're
great
good.
way.
Compared to some of the stuff that we've said on the show, trust me,
Yeah,
you're
amongst friends.
you're fine.
Sane and thoughtful.
Yes. Eugene, where can people find you and find your work should you choose to be found?
Well, right now, of course, it's always IG at Voodoo Daddy, VUDU Daddy, and then X. Well, I hate calling it that, but
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
And then I also do photography and stuff like that. So if
Awesome.
they want to find me on socials.
Cool.
I'm barely on it, but I will answer you if I see it and
Great.
stuff like that. But, just doing stuff in photography. That's what I'm doing right now.
Love it.
Cool.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Good luck with eternity. Good luck.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Right before I go?
Listen, man, you're a
was
space
going
wizard.
so
You can
well.
handle it. You can handle it.
No, I can't. There's a reason why I escaped. It's like eternity was prison.
Ladies, gentlemen, non-binary friends, fugitive space wizard Eugene Byrd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all fun, man.
Thank you, Eugene.
that's
What a
great.
pleasure.
I mean, come on, that was great.
So
Eugene
good.
is so delightful, and I had no clue any of that. That story about him being a space wizard, which
Awesome.
I'm claiming. He's not claiming that, but yeah, it was delightful. He said he had something for us, but I didn't know what it was. So always a delightful surprise.
You
when
know
our
what it
guests-
was, Mike? It was an amazing story of high
It
strangeness.
really,
There you go.
truly was. All right, let's head over to the Collector's Corner. But first, let's thank some Club Scouts who have recently joined us over on BCC The Other Side. Catherine Gardner,
Thank you.
Jasmine B,
Thank you, Jasmine.
Grim,
Thanks, Grim.
Christopher,
Thanks, Christopher.
Michael,
Thanks, Michael.
Eva Creel,
Thank you, Eva.
Justin Thibodeau, Cosmeteer,
Thank you, Justin. Welcome.
William John Don,
Thank you, William John Don.
James Henry,
Thanks, James.
Jan,
Thanks, Jan.
Steph B,
Hey, thanks, Steph.
Erica,
Thank you.
Delinda,
Thank you.
Barry,
Thanks, Barry.
and our favorite name of the week, Vamp Hundler Cosmeteer. Vamp Hundler.
Vamp Hundler, welcome to the ranks.
Yeah. Head over to patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub to unlock total access to 3 bonus eps every month. Access to the BCC Discord and more. You can also upgrade to the Cosmeteer membership to unlock 3 music tracks from super producer Riley, as well as our most recent out there video episode with our guest Steve Berg. So go over there and check that out. All right,
Ooh.
guys, let's head over to the Collector's Corner. Let's find out what you're working on, what we're currently collecting, reading, watching, or simply into. I want to remind everybody to check out Bookie on Max. You'll see Eugene. You'll see me. Also, collecting wise this week, I'm just gonna reluctantly say that Lego has now come out with Animal Crossing Lego sets, and if you were with us during the pandemic,
No
you
way.
know,
Remember our
Coming back
Animal Crossing
around.
phase?
Yes.
Oh, that was fun.
I picked up one of the small sets, and I love it. And then my lovely fiance surprised me with a set yesterday. It reminds me, Lego used to have this thing called Fabuland when I was a kid. That was like a short-lived series of like little animals and houses. So anyway, it's kind of feels like it's come full circle. And
Well, there you go. Keeping that kid alive.
Lego building, tell you what, it decreases my anxiety. It destroys my cortisol levels. I love it.
Yeah, David Beckham said the same thing on that latest documentary. He loves those Legos.
Man, it's just-
So see, it's cool footballers too.
Yeah.
Riley, what are you collecting, man?
Well, I think the thing I'm going to bring up today is that, so remember when I was talking about the weather synthesizer?
Oh yes,
That I was
so
using.
fucking cool.
So I'm still using ChatGPT. I'm still learning to program, and because of the show and talking about it, someone reached out to me who's become a new internet friend, and I want to shout him out. He's Mom Lombo Fossils.
Cool.
He has this. He's this dude. He lives in New Zealand. He's this incredible fossil hunter, and he has this like really exceptional YouTube channel that
No way.
chronicles his fossil hunting journeys. Also just the coolest, nicest dude. Also a programmer. So he just reached out and we started chatting, and he helped me develop the web backend for this first version of the weather synth. So
It's
if you go
so
to
cool.
weathersynth.com, you can try out this like very first beta version of the program where it pulls up, you select a city and it takes the weather data from that city and it generates it into a tone.
Dude, I'll put a link to the show in the show notes of this episode.
And if it's
Weather
crashing,
sync.
it's because I haven't paid for enough people to use the API yet. So just come back later. Too many people are using it.
Love it.
But this is like
so
early
cool.
days,
Popular.
and
You
you're
know-
just following my little journey into programming. And
I said this before, but I think it's more than just a little journey. What I love about some of what you're doing is I feel like you're giving voice to a city or to a location in the form of a synth tone, and I just fucking love that. And I know that you were doing it with some planets too,
Yeah, I'm
pulling
working on
data
that too. Yeah.
pulling planetary data. And if you think about it, so much of esoteric literature ascribes personalities to these planets. They might be anthropomorphic, but there's this idea that the planets themselves have consciousness. And you're sort of the first human, I think, that's sort of giving. Well, maybe, but in your
You
own
might just
way.
be the first human.
But hold on,
We don't know
sort of
how
the-
old
Yeah.
you are.
I
the
know what
first
you're
one
saying.
to ascribe sort of a voice or a tone to these planets, giving them voice. So maybe
I
they're watching
appreciate
out and they're giving you a little tap on the back saying, "Thank you, Riley,
I appreciate
for giving
that,
me
Bryce.
cool synth tones."
Well, and actually, I'm working on. So last night, I'm working on a multi-track loop player that I'm building in Python for that very project, so that I don't have to use like recording software. I can like make a little piece of hardware that just plays this like piece of music that'll play for 10,000 years or whatever. I mean, the hardware won't last that long, but
Cool.
anyways, check out weathersynth.com. Big shout out to Mom Lombo Fossils, who is just a gem of a dude. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Love it.
all right. Love
Bryce,
it.
what do you got?
Hey, check this out. So my buddy Kamalatin Sert, shout out, gave me a book by Quentin Tarantino. It's his first nonfiction book called Cinema Speculation. He knew I was a big Tarantino fan. But this is sort of Tarantino's story about how he fell in love with cinema, and it's told through the chapters of like 70s movies, like 10 70s movies. And so I was like, oh, I want to read the chapter, watch the movie, and then read the chapter again. So it's almost like this going through film school through the eyes of Quentin
that.
Tarantino. So I've been doing that. That was fun because I have a big gaping hole in my 70s cinema. So I'm trying to fill it with good stuff.
what's that about your? Never mind. I'm not even gonna.
Yeah, you don't want to touch
so
that
many
one?
people
You don't want
that
to
one
touch my
there.
big gaping hole, right?
Oh my God.
I want to see it in 70s cinema.
Club
I'll tell you
Bryce.
that much.
Club Rice BGH.
Oh my God. Anyway, great book. If you're a fan of cinema, give that a try. That should be fun.
Cool.
I gotta read it. All right, everyone. If we don't see you over on the other side, we will see you back here next week for an all-new episode of Bigfoot Collectors Club. Until then, good night.
Oh, and wait. Are we going to the other side to talk about the X-Files pilot? Because holy shit, that was good. If you're not over on Patreon, join now because we're about to unload on that.
Well, I was
And-
being vague because this might come out a week earlier than that.
Oh,
So
well, even if it
Something-
doesn't,
something to look forward to, kids.
Yeah.
something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Join that Patreon and go get regressed.
There it is.
What I live for. Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced by Riley Bray and Michael McMillan and scored and engineered by Riley Bray. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Do us a favor and support the show and unlock 3 bonus episodes every month by becoming a member of our Patreon, BCC The Other Side, which can be found at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub.